You'd let me interview you as Superman.
Sure.
Defense said he was gonna look into your actions. That's funny. He entered a country.
This is how you're gonna be?
I'm not the one being interviewed in the same situation, and consider the consequences.
People were going to die! Hey, buddy. Eyes up here.
Your actions.
He's not a man. Except that.
Part 1. Superman 2025 *, directed by James Gunn, presents a fresh and emotionally grounded interpretation of the iconic superhero by focusing not only on his incredible powers but also on his humanity, compassion, moral integrity, and unwavering hope, introducing Clark Kent as a young Superman who is still learning how to balance his Kryptonian heritage with the values he was raised to believe in on Earth. Instead of portraying him as an invincible figure who always has every answer, the film explores the emotional weight of being the world's greatest protector while constantly facing public scrutiny, political pressure, media criticism, and powerful enemies who question whether someone with limitless abilities can truly be trusted, creating a compelling conflict that is both personal and global. From the opening moments, the movie establishes Superman as a symbol of kindness rather than fear, showing that his greatest strength is not his superhuman abilities but his willingness to protect innocent lives regardless of the cost, making every rescue feel meaningful because it reflects his deep belief that every life has value. David Corenswet delivers a sincere and optimistic performance as Clark Kent, capturing the humility, warmth, and quiet determination that have defined Superman for generations, while the film carefully balances large-scale action sequences with emotional character development, ensuring that audiences understand the man behind the cape instead of seeing only an unstoppable hero. Visually, the movie embraces vibrant colors, hopeful imagery, and dynamic cinematography that celebrates the classic spirit of Superman while introducing a modern perspective on heroism, responsibility, and identity, establishing from the very beginning that this story is not simply about defeating villains but about proving that hope, compassion, courage, and selflessness remain powerful ideals even in a world filled with fear, conflict, and uncertainty, making the opening chapter a strong foundation for an inspiring and emotionally engaging superhero journey. Part 2. As the story develops, Superman 2025 * carefully establishes Clark Kent as a hero who is respected by many yet questioned by others, exploring the complicated reality of living as the most powerful being on Earth in a world where trust is fragile and every action is examined through politics, media coverage, and public opinion. Although Superman dedicates himself to protecting innocent people without expecting recognition or reward, the film realistically shows that not everyone welcomes his presence, as some governments, influential organizations, and powerful individuals fear that no single person should possess such extraordinary abilities, creating an ideological conflict that becomes just as important as the physical battles throughout the movie. Clark continues working as a journalist at the Daily Planet, where his career reflects another side of his personality because journalism allows him to search for truth, expose injustice, and understand the struggles of ordinary people beyond the spectacular rescues that define his public identity, reinforcing the idea that heroism is expressed through honesty, empathy, and service rather than strength alone. Meanwhile, Lois Lane emerges as an intelligent, determined, and fearless investigative reporter who challenges Clark both professionally and emotionally, encouraging him to question difficult moral decisions while remaining committed to the ideals that define his character, and their relationship grows through mutual respect, trust, and shared values instead of depending solely on romance. The film also emphasizes that Superman's greatest challenge is not discovering whether he is powerful enough to defeat his enemies but determining how to use his immense abilities responsibly without allowing fear, anger, or public criticism to compromise the compassion and hope that have always guided him, making this stage of the narrative a thoughtful exploration of identity, responsibility, and the timeless belief that true strength is measured not by physical power but by the courage to remain kind and principled even when the entire world questions your intentions. Part 3. As Superman continues protecting Metropolis and responding to crises around the world, the film gradually expands its central conflict by showing that the greatest threats he faces are not always physical opponents but the growing distrust, misinformation, and political manipulation that attempt to turn public opinion against him, forcing Clark Kent to confront the painful reality that even the purest intentions can be misunderstood in a divided society. Despite saving countless lives without hesitation, Superman becomes the subject of intense debate as influential figures question whether an alien with unimaginable powers should be allowed to act independently without answering to any government or military authority, creating a complex moral conflict that challenges both his ideals and his emotional resilience. Rather than responding with anger or using his powers to silence criticism, Clark chooses patience, humility, and transparency, demonstrating that his greatest strength lies in his unwavering commitment to truth, justice, compassion, and the protection of every innocent life regardless of how he is perceived. At the Daily Planet, Lois Lane investigates the hidden forces manipulating public fear while uncovering evidence that powerful individuals may be exploiting Superman's reputation for their own political and personal ambitions, adding layers of suspense and reinforcing the importance of journalism in defending truth against deception. The film also deepens Clark's internal struggle as he questions whether his presence truly helps humanity or unintentionally creates greater conflict, yet the lessons taught by Jonathan and Martha Kent continue to guide his decisions. Reminding him that being a hero is never about seeking approval but about doing what is morally right even when gratitude is absent, criticism is constant, and the burden of responsibility feels overwhelming, making this section of the story a compelling exploration of integrity, hope, sacrifice, and the enduring belief that genuine heroism is defined not by limitless power but by the courage to remain compassionate in the face of fear and uncertainty. Part 4. As the narrative gains momentum, Superman 2025 * shifts its focus toward the emotional burden of being a symbol of hope in a world filled with fear, uncertainty, and conflicting opinions, illustrating that Clark Kent's greatest challenge is maintaining his optimism when every decision he makes is analyzed, criticized, and often misunderstood by the public. Despite possessing extraordinary abilities that allow him to stop disasters, rescue civilians, and prevent global catastrophes within moments, Superman realizes that physical victories alone cannot eliminate hatred, distrust, or manipulation, because the most dangerous battles are often fought within people's hearts and minds rather than on the battlefield. Meanwhile, Lois Lane's relentless investigation begins uncovering evidence that influential figures are deliberately spreading misinformation to weaken public confidence in Superman, revealing that fear can become a powerful weapon when truth is ignored, while Clark continues refusing to respond with intimidation or force, believing that genuine trust must be earned through honesty, consistency, and selfless actions rather than demanded through power. The supporting characters further reinforce this idea by presenting different perspectives on Superman's existence, with some viewing him as humanity's greatest protector and others considering him an unpredictable threat, creating a morally complex atmosphere where every action carries emotional and political consequences. Throughout these events, Clark remains guided by the principles instilled in him by Jonathan and Martha Kent, choosing compassion over anger, restraint over revenge, and hope over despair even when the world appears divided against him. Emphasizing that true heroism is measured not by the ability to defeat enemies but by the strength to uphold one's values during the most difficult moments, making this stage of the film a thoughtful exploration of responsibility, integrity, and the timeless belief that even in the darkest times, hope can inspire people to become better than they believe themselves to be. Part 5. As the conflict continues to intensify, Superman 2025 * introduces increasingly dangerous challenges that force Clark Kent to confront not only powerful physical enemies but also the emotional consequences of carrying the hopes of an entire world on his shoulders, emphasizing that every rescue, every decision, and every sacrifice influences how humanity perceives the symbol of Superman. While devastating threats begin endangering innocent lives across Metropolis and beyond, Clark consistently places the safety of civilians above defeating his opponents, demonstrating that his first instinct is always to protect rather than destroy, a defining characteristic that separates him from many other superheroes and reinforces the film's central message that compassion is the greatest expression of true strength. At the same time, the narrative explores the psychological burden of constant responsibility, as Superman quietly struggles with loneliness, impossible expectations, and the fear that even a single mistake could permanently damage the trust people place in him, making his internal conflict just as compelling as the spectacular action unfolding around him. Lois Lane remains an essential source of emotional balance by challenging Clark to remain honest with himself while continuing her search for the hidden forces manipulating public opinion, proving that truth can become just as powerful as superhuman abilities when used with courage and integrity. Visually, the film combines breathtaking aerial sequences, large-scale rescue operations, and emotionally intimate character moments to create a balance between epic spectacle and personal storytelling, ensuring that every action scene advances Clark's emotional journey rather than existing solely for excitement. And by the end of this stage it becomes increasingly clear that Superman 2025 is not simply telling the story of an invincible hero defeating villains but presenting a thoughtful examination of leadership, responsibility, hope, sacrifice, and the enduring belief that genuine greatness is measured by the lives a person chooses to protect rather than the enemies they defeat. Part 6. As the story reaches a more intense emotional stage, Superman 2025 * explores how Clark Kent begins questioning whether his endless efforts to protect humanity are truly making the world a better place, because despite saving countless innocent lives, he continues facing criticism, political opposition, and growing public division fueled by misinformation and fear, forcing him to realize that being a symbol of hope means accepting that not everyone will understand or appreciate his intentions. Rather than allowing frustration to control his actions, Clark remains committed to the values taught by Jonathan and Martha Kent, believing that kindness, honesty, humility, and selfless service are far stronger than anger, revenge, or intimidation, and this unwavering moral compass becomes the defining quality that separates Superman from every other powerful being in the film. Meanwhile, Lois Lane continues uncovering evidence of a larger conspiracy designed to manipulate public perception and exploit humanity's fear of Superman for personal and political gain, adding another layer of suspense while emphasizing the importance of truth in a society overwhelmed by deception and propaganda. The supporting characters also play an increasingly significant role by demonstrating how different people respond to fear, hope, and uncertainty, making the world feel realistic and emotionally complex instead of presenting a simple conflict between good and evil. As Clark balances his responsibilities as both Superman and an investigative journalist, the narrative reinforces the idea that heroism is not limited to extraordinary powers but is equally reflected in everyday acts of courage, honesty, compassion, and the willingness to stand for justice even when facing overwhelming opposition, making this section of the film a meaningful exploration of integrity, sacrifice, resilience, and the enduring belief that hope can survive even during humanity's darkest moments. Part 7. As the narrative continues to unfold, Superman 2025 * deepens its exploration of Clark Kent's emotional conflict by presenting increasingly difficult situations where every decision carries enormous consequences, forcing him to balance his personal values with the expectations of a world that simultaneously depends on him and questions his existence. Although Superman possesses the strength to overcome almost any physical obstacle, the film emphasizes that his greatest struggle is preserving his humanity while carrying responsibilities that no ordinary person could ever imagine, making his emotional vulnerability one of the story's most compelling elements because it reminds audiences that true heroes experience fear, doubt, disappointment, and loneliness just like everyone else. Meanwhile, Lois Lane's investigation uncovers additional evidence suggesting that powerful individuals are deliberately manipulating global events to create distrust and weaken Superman's influence, transforming the conflict into a battle not only against dangerous enemies but also against deception, propaganda, and the misuse of public fear for political advantage. Clark refuses to compromise his principles despite increasing pressure, continuing to rescue innocent people regardless of nationality, personal beliefs, or public opinion, reinforcing the timeless idea that genuine heroism is defined by unconditional compassion rather than selective loyalty or personal recognition. Visually, the film balances spectacular action sequences with emotionally intimate conversations that reveal Clark's internal struggles, ensuring that every moment of large-scale destruction is matched by meaningful character development and moral reflection, while the inspiring musical score further strengthens the hopeful atmosphere that defines Superman's character. By this stage of the story, it becomes increasingly clear that the film is not simply celebrating the power of an extraordinary superhero but exploring the enduring importance of truth, justice, empathy, responsibility, and unwavering hope in a world where fear and division often threaten to overshadow humanity's capacity for goodness. Part 8. As the stakes continue to rise, Superman 2025 * carefully demonstrates that Clark Kent's greatest victories are achieved not through overwhelming force but through his unwavering belief that every life deserves to be protected, regardless of the risks involved, and this philosophy becomes increasingly important as the conflict expands beyond physical confrontations into a struggle over truth, trust, and the future of humanity's relationship with its greatest protector. While powerful enemies continue testing Superman's abilities, the film repeatedly highlights his refusal to solve problems through unnecessary violence, showing that he always searches for peaceful solutions before resorting to combat, a choice that reflects the compassion and moral discipline instilled in him by Jonathan and Martha Kent throughout his childhood. Meanwhile, Lois Lane's relentless pursuit of the truth uncovers deeper layers of the conspiracy surrounding Superman, exposing how fear can be manufactured and manipulated by ambitious individuals seeking power, influence, and control, making journalism itself an essential weapon against corruption and deception. Clark also begins to realize that inspiring hope requires more than spectacular rescues, because people must choose to believe in one another rather than allowing suspicion and prejudice to define their future, reinforcing the film's message that symbols gain meaning only when ordinary individuals embrace the values they represent. Emotionally, this stage of the narrative presents Superman as a hero who remains humble despite his extraordinary abilities, accepting criticism without resentment and continuing to place the needs of others before his own happiness. Proving that genuine strength is measured by selflessness, patience, integrity, and resilience instead of physical dominance alone, and by combining thrilling action with thoughtful character development, the movie strengthens its central theme that even in a world overwhelmed by fear, conflict, and uncertainty, hope remains humanity's most powerful force when protected by courage, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to justice. Part 9. As the film approaches its dramatic turning point, Superman 2025 * raises both the emotional and narrative stakes by forcing Clark Kent to confront the possibility that even the strongest symbol of hope can be shaken by relentless criticism. Carefully orchestrated conspiracies, and increasingly dangerous enemies determined to convince humanity that fear is more powerful than trust. Yet despite facing constant pressure from governments, media manipulation, and personal sacrifices, Superman refuses to abandon the moral principles that define his identity, believing that genuine leadership is measured not by popularity or unquestioned authority but by the courage to protect others even when gratitude is absent and misunderstanding is widespread. Meanwhile, Lois Lane uncovers crucial evidence exposing how influential figures have manipulated public perception for their own ambitions, reinforcing the film's powerful message that truth remains one of the greatest defenses against corruption and fear, while Clark's experiences as both a journalist and a superhero allow him to understand that justice requires honesty, patience, and accountability in addition to extraordinary strength. Emotionally, the narrative continues exploring Clark's struggle to reconcile his Kryptonian heritage with the human values instilled in him by Jonathan and Martha Kent, demonstrating that his greatest power has never been flight, super strength, or invulnerability but his limitless compassion, humility, and unwavering belief in the goodness of humanity, qualities that inspire people to become better versions of themselves rather than simply relying on him to solve every problem. Through spectacular action sequences balanced with thoughtful character moments and meaningful moral questions, the movie reinforces the timeless idea that heroes are remembered not because they are perfect or invincible but because they choose hope over despair, selflessness over personal comfort, and integrity over fear, making this chapter a significant step toward the film's emotional and philosophical climax. Part 10. As the story moves into its central confrontation, Superman 2025 powerfully demonstrates that Clark Kent's greatest challenge is no longer defeating a single enemy but preserving humanity's faith in hope, truth, and compassion while facing relentless attacks on both his character and his ideals, because the forces opposing him understand that destroying a symbol can be more effective than winning a battle. Despite the enormous pressure placed upon him, Superman continues risking his own safety to protect innocent people without hesitation, refusing to let anger, revenge, or despair influence his decisions, and this unwavering commitment to selflessness reinforces the timeless belief that true heroism is defined by the willingness to place the lives of others above personal recognition or comfort. Lois Lane's investigation reaches a critical stage as hidden conspiracies begin to unravel, exposing the calculated manipulation of fear and misinformation that has divided public opinion, while her determination to uncover the truth highlights the importance of honest journalism in defending justice against corruption and deception. Clark also reflects more deeply on the lessons taught by Jonathan and Martha Kent, recognizing that his humanity is not weakened by his Kryptonian origins but strengthened by the love, compassion, humility, and moral values he learned while growing up on Earth, allowing him to embrace both sides of his identity without sacrificing either. The film balances breathtaking action with emotionally intimate moments that reveal Superman's vulnerability, reminding audiences that even the most powerful hero experiences loneliness, doubt, and emotional exhaustion, yet continues moving forward because protecting others remains more important than protecting himself, ultimately reinforcing the inspiring message that genuine greatness is achieved not through limitless power but through unwavering integrity, resilience, kindness, and the courage to remain a symbol of hope even when the world appears determined to lose faith in it. Part 11. As the narrative enters its most emotionally intense phase, Superman 2025 shifts its attention toward the personal sacrifices required to remain a symbol of hope in a world increasingly consumed by fear, suspicion, and division, illustrating that Clark Kent's greatest burden is not the physical danger he faces but the emotional weight of knowing that every choice he makes can inspire millions or deepen the mistrust surrounding him. Despite relentless attacks from powerful enemies and constant attempts to damage his reputation, Superman refuses to abandon his principles, continuing to rescue innocent people without discrimination while demonstrating extraordinary restraint even against those who openly oppose him, proving that genuine strength lies in self-control, compassion, and unwavering moral conviction rather than domination or revenge. Meanwhile, Lois Lane's investigation exposes additional layers of deception orchestrated by influential figures seeking to manipulate public opinion for personal and political gain, reinforcing the film's central argument that truth must always be defended with courage and persistence because lies become increasingly dangerous when repeated often enough. Clark's dual identity as both an investigative journalist and Earth's greatest protector becomes increasingly meaningful, as each role reflects a different expression of the same mission to defend justice, protect the vulnerable, and encourage people to believe in one another despite overwhelming adversity. Visually, the film continues blending spectacular large-scale action with quiet emotional conversations that reveal Clark's vulnerability, humanity, and inner resilience, ensuring that every dramatic confrontation also advances his personal journey instead of existing merely for spectacle. And by this stage it becomes evident that Superman 2025 is ultimately a story about the enduring power of hope, integrity, sacrifice, and compassion, reminding audiences that the strongest heroes are not those who never struggle but those who continue choosing kindness, truth, and selflessness even when the entire world seems determined to challenge their faith in humanity. Part 12. As the story progresses toward its final act, Superman 2025 expands beyond the traditional superhero formula by presenting Clark Kent as a leader whose greatest influence comes not from his extraordinary powers but from the hope he inspires in ordinary people. Emphasizing that true heroism encourages others to stand for truth, justice, compassion, and courage instead of depending entirely on a single savior, and this philosophical shift becomes one of the film's most powerful ideas because Superman realizes that lasting change can only occur when humanity chooses to embrace the same values he represents. While increasingly dangerous threats continue testing his physical endurance and emotional resilience, Clark refuses to compromise his principles even when doing so might make victory easier, demonstrating that moral integrity is more valuable than temporary success achieved through fear or violence. Lois Lane's relentless pursuit of the truth continues exposing the hidden conspiracy manipulating public opinion, proving that courage exists not only in extraordinary heroes but also in ordinary individuals willing to risk everything for honesty and justice, while the supporting characters gradually begin recognizing that Superman's greatest gift is not his ability to fly or his unmatched strength but his unwavering belief that every human life possesses equal worth and deserves protection without prejudice or hesitation. Emotionally, Clark accepts that he cannot force people to trust him, but he can continue earning that trust through consistent acts of kindness, sacrifice, humility, and responsibility, reinforcing the timeless lesson that genuine leadership is built through actions rather than words or titles. With its balance of emotional storytelling, inspiring performances, meaningful moral questions, and breathtaking cinematic spectacle, this stage of the film strengthens the central message that hope remains humanity's greatest strength, and that even in moments of overwhelming darkness, one individual's commitment to truth, compassion, and selfless service can inspire an entire world to believe in a better future. Part 13. As the film approaches its emotional climax, Superman 2025 emphasizes that the true battle is not simply between heroes and villains but between hope and fear, truth and deception, selflessness and selfish ambition, illustrating that Clark Kent's greatest victory lies in preserving his humanity despite possessing unimaginable power, because every challenge he faces forces him to choose compassion over anger, forgiveness over revenge, and responsibility over personal desire, proving that his moral character is the foundation of his strength rather than his Kryptonian abilities. While devastating conflicts continue threatening innocent lives across the world, Superman repeatedly prioritizes rescuing civilians before confronting his enemies, demonstrating that protecting life will always remain more important than achieving a quick victory, and this unwavering commitment inspires ordinary people to act with courage, support one another, and reject the fear deliberately spread by those seeking power through division and manipulation. Lois Lane's fearless determination to expose the truth reaches its most significant stage, revealing how misinformation and political agendas have been carefully orchestrated to undermine public trust in Superman, reinforcing the timeless importance of honest journalism, accountability, and transparency in defending justice against corruption. Throughout these events, Clark reflects on the values instilled by Jonathan and Martha Kent, realizing that although he was born on Krypton, the compassion, humility, empathy, and integrity that define Superman were learned through his human upbringing, allowing him to fully embrace both sides of his identity without conflict or shame. By combining emotionally powerful character moments with spectacular action, meaningful dialogue, and inspiring themes, the film continues building toward a conclusion that celebrates the enduring belief that real heroes are remembered not because they are the strongest beings in existence but because they choose to protect others, remain faithful to their principles, and continue offering hope even when the world seems overwhelmed by darkness, uncertainty, and fear. Part 14. As the narrative enters its final stages, Superman 2025 reinforces the idea that the greatest responsibility of a hero is not to prove their strength but to preserve the hope of those who have begun to lose faith, and Clark Kent fully embraces this realization by understanding that every act of kindness, every life he saves, and every difficult decision he makes sends a message far more powerful than any display of superhuman force, inspiring people to believe that compassion, honesty, and courage still have a place in an increasingly divided world. While the conspiracy against Superman begins collapsing under the weight of truth uncovered by Lois Lane and the Daily Planet, the emotional consequences of months of public suspicion remain, forcing Clark to accept that trust is rebuilt slowly through consistent actions rather than dramatic speeches, a lesson that reflects the film's mature approach to heroism and leadership. The movie also explores the contrast between those who seek power through fear and those who earn respect through service, emphasizing that Superman never fights for personal glory, revenge, or recognition but simply because he believes every innocent life deserves protection regardless of background, nationality, or personal belief, making his compassion the true source of his greatness. Visually, the film reaches new heights through breathtaking aerial sequences, emotionally charged confrontations, and inspiring cinematic imagery that captures both the grandeur of Superman as a legendary icon and the quiet humanity of Clark Kent as an ordinary man shaped by extraordinary responsibility. By carefully balancing action, emotional storytelling, philosophical themes, and character development, this chapter prepares the audience for the film's powerful conclusion while reinforcing its central message that genuine heroism is measured not by invincibility or limitless power but by the courage to remain truthful, humble, compassionate, and selfless even when the world gives every reason to surrender hope. Part 15. As the story approaches its final resolution, Superman 2025 reaches the emotional peak of Clark Kent's journey by demonstrating that his greatest achievement is not defeating powerful enemies but inspiring humanity to rediscover faith in truth, justice, compassion, and one another, proving that even the strongest hero cannot build a better world alone unless ordinary people also choose courage over fear and unity over division. After enduring relentless criticism, manipulation, and personal sacrifice, Clark never allows bitterness or anger to replace the values that have guided him since childhood, continuing to protect every innocent life without expecting gratitude or recognition, and this unwavering commitment transforms Superman from merely a powerful protector into a timeless symbol of hope whose influence extends far beyond physical victories. Lois Lane's fearless dedication to exposing the truth ultimately helps restore public trust by revealing the deception behind the campaign to discredit Superman, reinforcing the idea that honesty, accountability, and responsible journalism remain essential foundations of a free and just society. Emotionally, Clark fully accepts that being both Kryptonian and human is not a contradiction but a unique strength, embracing his extraordinary abilities while remaining deeply connected to the compassion, humility, empathy, and moral integrity taught to him by Jonathan and Martha Kent, allowing him to stand as a bridge between different worlds instead of belonging exclusively to one. The film concludes this stage of its narrative by reminding audiences that genuine greatness is never measured by limitless strength, spectacular victories, or public admiration, but by the willingness to remain kind during conflict, truthful during deception, selfless during hardship, and hopeful even when surrounded by darkness, making Superman 2025 not simply another superhero adventure but a thoughtful and inspiring reflection on leadership, responsibility, resilience, and the enduring belief that hope remains humanity's most powerful force when protected by individuals who refuse to abandon their principles regardless of the challenges they face. Part 16. Looking beyond its spectacular action and visual effects, Superman 2025 succeeds because it presents Clark Kent as a deeply human character whose emotional struggles make him relatable despite his extraordinary abilities, emphasizing that the true essence of Superman has never been invulnerability or unmatched strength but the constant choice to act with compassion, humility, honesty, and selfless courage even when those values are challenged by fear, hatred, political manipulation, and personal sacrifice. Throughout the film, Clark repeatedly demonstrates that leadership is not about controlling others through power but about inspiring them through example, encouraging ordinary people to reject division, stand for truth, and help one another instead of waiting for a single hero to solve every problem, a philosophy that gives the story emotional depth and distinguishes it from a conventional superhero narrative focused only on battles and destruction. The relationship between Clark and Lois Lane further strengthens this message because their partnership is built on trust, mutual respect, intellectual equality, and a shared commitment to justice, showing that real strength often comes from working together rather than acting alone. At the same time, the influence of Jonathan and Martha Kent remains the emotional foundation of Superman's identity, reminding viewers that character is shaped more by love, guidance, and moral values than by biology or destiny, allowing Clark to embrace both his Kryptonian heritage and his human upbringing without compromising either. As the narrative moves steadily toward its conclusion, the film reinforces its central belief that hope is not an abstract ideal but a practical force created through countless acts of kindness, sacrifice, resilience, and integrity performed every day by individuals who refuse to surrender to fear, making Superman 2025 an uplifting exploration of responsibility, identity, and the enduring truth that the greatest heroes are remembered not for the power they possess but for the hope they inspire in others. Part 17. From a deeper thematic perspective, Superman 2025 explores the timeless conflict between power and responsibility by asking whether someone with limitless abilities can remain humble, compassionate, and morally grounded in a world constantly attempting to manipulate, control, or fear that power, and Clark Kent's journey answers this question by proving that true greatness is determined not by extraordinary strength but by the discipline to use that strength only in the service of others, even when doing so demands enormous personal sacrifice. Throughout the narrative, Superman repeatedly rejects opportunities to impose his will through force, choosing instead to earn humanity's trust through patience, honesty, empathy, and consistent acts of selfless courage, demonstrating that leadership built upon fear is temporary whereas leadership built upon integrity inspires lasting hope and unity. The film also develops the idea that every symbol gains meaning only through the actions supporting it. As the famous House of L emblem represents more than Kryptonian heritage, it becomes a universal reminder that kindness, justice, resilience, and compassion can overcome hatred, deception, and division when people choose to uphold those values together. Lois Lane continues playing an indispensable role by exposing hidden truths and challenging Clark to remain emotionally honest, reinforcing that courage is expressed not only through physical heroism but also through the relentless pursuit of truth despite overwhelming opposition. Visually and emotionally, the movie balances breathtaking moments of large-scale heroism with intimate scenes of reflection, allowing audiences to witness Clark's vulnerability alongside his incredible abilities. And this contrast strengthens the central message that the most powerful hero is not the one who never falls or never doubts, but the one who continues standing for hope, truth, and humanity even after experiencing loss, criticism, and disappointment, making Superman 2025 an inspiring meditation on identity, purpose, sacrifice, and the enduring belief that the strongest force in any world is a compassionate heart guided by unwavering moral conviction. Part 18. As the analysis moves beyond the central conflict, Superman 2025 reveals that its greatest achievement lies in redefining Superman not as an unreachable god among humans but as an individual who deliberately chooses compassion over superiority. Demonstrating that despite possessing powers beyond imagination, Clark Kent consistently places himself on the same moral level as the people he protects, listening to their fears, respecting their freedom, and accepting criticism without allowing resentment to shape his actions, which reinforces the film's belief that genuine leadership is rooted in humility rather than authority. The narrative also examines the emotional loneliness that accompanies extraordinary responsibility, showing that Superman cannot always share his burdens openly because revealing too much could endanger those he loves or create even greater fear among the public. Yet instead of withdrawing from humanity, he responds by strengthening his commitment to kindness, patience, and service, proving that isolation does not have to result in bitterness. Lois Lane's unwavering determination to uncover the truth continues highlighting the importance of independent journalism and moral courage, reminding viewers that defending justice often requires ordinary individuals to stand against powerful institutions, while Clark's dual identity as both reporter and protector symbolizes the idea that truth and hope are inseparable foundations of a healthy society. Visually, the film contrasts moments of breathtaking aerial heroism with quiet conversations that expose Clark's vulnerability, ensuring that emotional honesty remains as important as cinematic spectacle. And by carefully weaving together themes of sacrifice, integrity, empathy, resilience, and responsibility, Superman 2025 ultimately argues that the world does not need a flawless hero but one who continually chooses to do what is right despite fear, misunderstanding, and impossible expectations, making its message universally meaningful and deeply inspiring for audiences across generations. Part 19. One of the most compelling aspects of Superman 2025 is the way it portrays hope as an active choice rather than a passive emotion, illustrating that Clark Kent's optimism is not the result of an easy life or unquestioned public admiration but the product of countless moments in which he consciously refuses to surrender to fear, anger, disappointment, or despair, even when powerful enemies attempt to convince the world that kindness is a weakness and compassion is outdated. The film repeatedly emphasizes that Superman's greatest victories occur not when he defeats an opponent through superior strength but when he inspires ordinary people to trust one another, stand together during moments of crisis, and reject hatred in favor of empathy, demonstrating that genuine heroism multiplies when it encourages others to become courageous themselves rather than simply depending upon a single savior. Clark's continuing relationship with Lois Lane deepens this philosophy because she challenges him intellectually and emotionally while remaining one of the few people capable of seeing both the legendary hero and the humble man behind the cape, reinforcing the importance of honesty, partnership, and mutual respect in sustaining hope during difficult times. Meanwhile, the influence of Jonathan and Martha Kent continues shaping Clark's moral decisions, reminding audiences that the values defining Superman were learned through ordinary acts of love, guidance, sacrifice, and integrity rather than extraordinary powers, making his humanity the true source of his greatness. By combining emotionally grounded storytelling with breathtaking action, meaningful dialogue, and thoughtful reflections on identity, leadership, responsibility, and truth, Superman 2025 * continues building toward a conclusion that celebrates the enduring belief that even in the darkest moments, one person's unwavering commitment to compassion, justice, and selfless service can inspire an entire world to believe that a better future is still possible. Part 20. Reaching the midpoint of this analysis, Superman 2025 stands out as more than a traditional superhero film because it presents Clark Kent as a symbol of hope whose greatest mission is not simply saving lives through extraordinary strength but encouraging humanity to rediscover its own capacity for kindness, courage, responsibility, and unity, illustrating that lasting change cannot be achieved by one powerful individual alone but requires ordinary people to embrace the same principles that Superman represents. Throughout the narrative, Clark repeatedly proves that his defining characteristic is not invincibility but his refusal to compromise his moral values, choosing mercy over revenge, truth over convenience, humility over pride, and compassion over anger even when such decisions expose him to criticism, misunderstanding, and personal sacrifice, thereby demonstrating that genuine leadership demands consistency of character rather than displays of power. The film also thoughtfully explores the emotional cost of carrying immense responsibility, showing that Superman experiences loneliness, doubt, and exhaustion like any other person, yet never allows those struggles to diminish his commitment to protecting innocent lives, making his perseverance deeply inspiring because it reflects the universal human challenge of continuing to do what is right despite adversity. Lois Lane's fearless investigation further reinforces the importance of truth and accountability, proving that courage exists in many forms beyond physical heroism, while the enduring influence of Jonathan and Martha Kent reminds viewers that integrity, empathy, and selflessness are qualities nurtured through love and guidance rather than inherited through extraordinary origins. By seamlessly combining heartfelt character development, philosophical depth, spectacular action, and timeless moral lessons, Superman 2025 * succeeds as an uplifting story about identity, purpose, sacrifice, and hope, ultimately reminding audiences that the greatest heroes are remembered not because they possess unimaginable power but because they inspire others to become stronger, kinder, and more compassionate versions of themselves even in the face of overwhelming fear and uncertainty. Part 22. As the analysis moves deeper into the film's underlying philosophy, Superman 2025 * demonstrates that the true meaning of heroism extends far beyond spectacular battles and extraordinary abilities, presenting Clark Kent as a man who continually chooses empathy, restraint, and moral responsibility over domination, even when his immense power would allow him to impose his will upon the world without resistance. This deliberate choice becomes the foundation of the film's emotional impact because it reminds audiences that real strength is measured not by the ability to defeat opponents but by the wisdom to know when compassion, forgiveness, and understanding are more powerful than violence, allowing Superman to remain a symbol of hope instead of fear. Throughout the story, Clark's dual identity continues serving as an important metaphor for balancing personal values with public expectations, illustrating that every individual must reconcile different aspects of their identity while remaining faithful to the principles that define their character. And his experiences as both a journalist and a superhero reinforce the belief that truth and justice are inseparable ideals requiring courage, honesty, and accountability in equal measure. Lois Lane's determination to uncover hidden realities further strengthens the narrative by proving that meaningful change often begins with ordinary people refusing to remain silent in the face of deception, while the lasting influence of Jonathan and Martha Kent reminds Clark that unconditional love, humility, integrity, and kindness are the qualities that ultimately distinguish him from those who misuse power for selfish purposes. By combining emotionally resonant storytelling, memorable performances, inspiring action, and thoughtful reflections on leadership, sacrifice, hope, and responsibility, Superman 2025 * continues building toward a deeply satisfying conclusion that celebrates the enduring belief that humanity's greatest strength has never been extraordinary power alone but the courage to choose compassion, unity, and truth even when fear and uncertainty threaten to overshadow every reason for hope. Part 23. As the narrative approaches its final emotional movement, Superman 2025 * reinforces the timeless belief that hope is strongest when it is tested by adversity, showing that Clark Kent's greatest accomplishment is not simply overcoming powerful enemies but remaining faithful to his principles even when the world doubts his intentions, because every accusation, every misunderstanding, and every personal sacrifice becomes another opportunity for him to prove that genuine heroism is defined by unwavering integrity rather than public approval. The film carefully contrasts Superman's selfless commitment to protecting all people equally with the ambitions of those who manipulate fear for personal power, illustrating that while force may achieve temporary control, only compassion, honesty, and justice can create lasting trust and unity, and this philosophical conflict gives the story emotional depth beyond its spectacular action sequences. Lois Lane continues serving as an indispensable partner by demonstrating that courage is expressed not only through physical bravery but also through the relentless pursuit of truth despite intimidation and opposition, while Clark's reflections on the teachings of Jonathan and Martha Kent remind audiences that the values shaping Superman's character, kindness, humility, responsibility, empathy, and perseverance, were learned through ordinary acts of love rather than extraordinary destiny. Visually, the film maintains a balance between breathtaking heroic moments and intimate conversations that reveal Clark's vulnerability, ensuring that every display of power is grounded in emotional authenticity and meaningful character development. By weaving together themes of identity, sacrifice, leadership, hope, truth, and moral responsibility, Superman 2025 * ultimately argues that the world does not need flawless heroes but individuals who consistently choose to protect others, remain honest in the face of deception, and inspire people to believe that even during humanity's darkest moments, compassion and courage possess the power to illuminate a path toward a brighter future. Part 24. As the analysis enters its concluding chapters, Superman 2025 * makes it increasingly clear that Clark Kent's greatest legacy is not the incredible feats he performs with his Kryptonian abilities but the example he sets through his unwavering compassion, humility, and dedication to serving humanity, demonstrating that symbols become meaningful only when they are supported by consistent actions and moral conviction rather than fame or power alone. Throughout the film, every challenge, whether physical, emotional, or ideological, tests Clark's commitment to the principles of truth, justice, empathy, and selfless responsibility, yet he repeatedly proves that genuine leadership requires patience, sacrifice, and the courage to continue doing what is right even when success is uncertain and public opinion remains divided. The story also reinforces the importance of hope as a shared responsibility rather than a gift provided by a single hero, showing that Superman's greatest influence comes from inspiring ordinary people to reject fear, support one another, and defend truth within their own communities, making his victories meaningful because they encourage humanity to become stronger together instead of remaining dependent upon one extraordinary individual. Lois Lane's fearless dedication to uncovering facts and exposing deception further emphasizes that truth is a powerful force capable of overcoming manipulation, while the enduring lessons taught by Jonathan and Martha Kent continue reminding Clark that kindness, integrity, resilience, and unconditional compassion will always remain the true foundations of his identity regardless of his alien origins. By combining emotionally resonant storytelling, inspiring performances, breathtaking action, and thoughtful philosophical themes, Superman 2025 evolves into far more than a conventional superhero adventure, offering a timeless reflection on identity, responsibility, sacrifice, hope, and the enduring belief that the strongest people are not those who possess limitless power but those who choose to use whatever power they have in the service of others with humility, courage, and unwavering moral integrity. Part 25. One of the film's most profound ideas is that Superman's greatest battle is ultimately an internal one rather than a physical confrontation, because Clark Kent must constantly decide whether to respond to fear with anger or with compassion, to answer hatred with revenge or with forgiveness, and to preserve his belief in humanity even when humanity itself appears uncertain about believing in him, making his emotional resilience far more inspiring than any display of superhuman strength. Throughout the narrative, every difficult decision reinforces the lesson that extraordinary power carries extraordinary responsibility, yet the movie deliberately avoids portraying Clark as a flawless savior, instead presenting him as a thoughtful and emotionally grounded individual who learns through experience, reflects on his mistakes, and continually strives to become a better protector without abandoning the humility and kindness that define his character. The relationship between Clark and Lois Lane continues serving as an emotional anchor, illustrating that trust, honesty, mutual respect, and shared ideals provide the stability needed to confront overwhelming challenges, while the lasting influence of Jonathan and Martha Kent reminds audiences that Superman's greatest strength originates not from Kryptonian biology but from the human values of empathy, integrity, sacrifice, and unconditional love that shaped him from childhood. Visually, the film complements these themes with inspiring imagery, emotionally powerful dialogue, and large-scale action that never overshadows the personal journey at the heart of the story, ensuring that every spectacular sequence also deepens the audience's understanding of Clark's identity and purpose. By blending heartfelt storytelling with meaningful reflections on leadership, hope, truth, responsibility, and moral courage, Superman 2025 ultimately celebrates the timeless belief that real heroes are remembered not because they possess unimaginable abilities but because they consistently choose to protect others, remain faithful to their principles, and inspire ordinary people to believe that kindness and justice will always be stronger than fear and hatred. Part 26. As the analysis moves closer to its conclusion, Superman 2025 ultimately argues that the true purpose of a hero is not to stand above humanity but to stand beside it, demonstrating that Clark Kent's greatest achievement is his ability to inspire ordinary people to become courageous, compassionate, and responsible in their own lives rather than simply depending on him to solve every crisis, and this philosophy gives the film a timeless emotional resonance because it transforms Superman from an all-powerful protector into a symbol of humanity's highest ideals. Throughout the story, Clark repeatedly proves that his greatest victories are earned through patience, empathy, humility, honesty, and unwavering moral conviction instead of overwhelming force, reinforcing the belief that lasting peace can never be created through fear alone but must be built upon trust, justice, understanding, and mutual respect. The narrative also highlights that every meaningful relationship in Clark's life, from Lois Lane's fearless pursuit of truth to the enduring guidance of Jonathan and Martha Kent, contributes to his emotional strength by reminding him that love, integrity, and compassion are the foundations of genuine leadership, while his willingness to accept criticism without abandoning his principles illustrates an extraordinary level of emotional maturity rarely seen in traditional superhero stories. Visually, the film continues balancing breathtaking action with intimate character moments, ensuring that every spectacular rescue and dramatic confrontation serves the larger purpose of exploring identity, sacrifice, hope, and responsibility rather than existing only for entertainment, and by weaving these themes together with sincerity and optimism, Superman 2025 delivers a powerful reminder that the greatest legacy any hero can leave behind is not the enemies they defeat but the hope they awaken in others, encouraging every generation to believe that courage, kindness, and truth remain humanity's most enduring sources of strength even during its darkest moments. Part 27. From a broader cinematic perspective, Superman 2025 succeeds because it restores the character's classic identity as a beacon of optimism while presenting him in a modern world filled with uncertainty, political conflict, media influence, and moral complexity, proving that the timeless ideals represented by Superman remain relevant even in contemporary society where trust is fragile and hope is often challenged. Clark Kent's journey demonstrates that authentic leadership is never about demanding admiration or controlling others through superior power but about earning respect through consistent acts of courage, honesty, humility, empathy, and unwavering dedication to protecting every innocent life regardless of personal cost, making his transformation throughout the film less about becoming stronger and more about strengthening his resolve to remain faithful to his principles despite constant opposition. The screenplay carefully balances emotional vulnerability with epic heroism, allowing audiences to connect with Clark as an ordinary man shaped by extraordinary circumstances rather than viewing him as an untouchable myth, while Lois Lane's fearless commitment to uncovering the truth continues reinforcing the idea that justice depends upon people willing to challenge corruption, question authority, and defend honesty even when doing so involves significant personal risk. The influence of Jonathan and Martha Kent remains central to the story's emotional foundation, reminding viewers that Superman's humanity was nurtured through compassion, love, integrity, and selfless guidance rather than inherited through his Kryptonian origins, and this emotional grounding ensures that every spectacular action sequence carries meaningful personal significance instead of existing purely for visual excitement. By uniting heartfelt storytelling, memorable performances, philosophical depth, and breathtaking cinematic spectacle, Superman 2025 * ultimately becomes a celebration of hope, responsibility, resilience, truth, and selfless service, leaving audiences with the inspiring belief that genuine greatness is defined not by extraordinary abilities but by the everyday choice to stand for what is right, protect those who cannot protect themselves, and remain a source of light even when surrounded by darkness. Part 28. As the film's deeper themes become fully apparent, Superman 2025 * emphasizes that hope is not a passive emotion but a conscious decision that must be renewed every day through courage, honesty, compassion, and perseverance, and Clark Kent embodies this philosophy by continuing to protect humanity even when his efforts are questioned, misunderstood, or deliberately manipulated by those who benefit from fear and division, proving that true heroism is defined not by receiving admiration but by remaining faithful to one's principles regardless of public opinion. Throughout the narrative, Superman consistently demonstrates remarkable restraint, refusing to misuse his immense power even when doing so could provide an easier path to victory, because he understands that lasting justice cannot be achieved through intimidation but only through respect for freedom, dignity, and the value of every individual life, making his moral discipline as extraordinary as his physical abilities. The partnership between Clark and Lois Lane further reinforces the story's emotional core, showing that trust, honesty, mutual encouragement, and the relentless pursuit of truth are essential foundations of both meaningful relationships and a healthy society, while the continuing influence of Jonathan and Martha Kent reminds viewers that the greatest lessons in life often come from ordinary acts of kindness, sacrifice, and unconditional love rather than extraordinary achievements. Visually, the film continues blending breathtaking action with intimate character moments, ensuring that every spectacular rescue carries emotional significance and every quiet conversation contributes to Clark's growth as both a hero and a human being. By integrating philosophical reflection, inspiring performances, emotionally grounded storytelling, and memorable cinematic spectacle, Superman 2025 * ultimately argues that the greatest power any individual can possess is the ability to inspire hope in others through integrity, humility, and selfless service, leaving audiences with a timeless reminder that even in a world overwhelmed by uncertainty, one person's unwavering commitment to truth and compassion can illuminate the path toward a better future. Part 29. As the analysis approaches its final chapters, Superman 2025 * ultimately presents Clark Kent as a hero whose true legacy is measured not by the number of battles he wins but by the countless lives he inspires to believe that kindness, courage, honesty, and hope are stronger than fear, hatred, and despair, demonstrating that the greatest victories are achieved when ordinary people choose to reflect the same values that Superman represents rather than simply admiring him from a distance. Throughout the film, Clark consistently rejects the temptation to use his immense abilities for personal gain or unquestioned authority, instead embracing humility, accountability, and service as the defining principles of his identity, proving that genuine leadership is earned through sacrifice and integrity rather than inherited through power or status. The emotional bond between Clark and Lois Lane continues reinforcing the importance of truth, mutual respect, and unwavering trust, while the enduring guidance of Jonathan and Martha Kent reminds audiences that Superman's extraordinary moral character is rooted in the simple yet profound lessons of compassion, empathy, responsibility, and unconditional love that shaped him long before he became the world's greatest hero. By carefully balancing epic action, intimate character development, philosophical reflection, and emotionally resonant storytelling, the film creates a version of Superman who feels both legendary and deeply human, allowing viewers to connect with his struggles, celebrate his triumphs, and appreciate the enduring relevance of his ideals in a modern world filled with uncertainty and division. Ultimately, Superman 2025 argues that every individual possesses the ability to become a source of hope within their own community through everyday acts of courage, kindness, and honesty, making its message universal, timeless, and inspiring because it reminds audiences that the strongest force in any society is not unlimited power but the unwavering determination to protect others, defend the truth, and continue believing in humanity even when doing so is most difficult. Part 30. Nearing the conclusion of this analysis, Superman 2025 ultimately leaves a lasting impression because it treats Superman not merely as a powerful comic book icon but as a timeless symbol of humanity's highest aspirations, demonstrating that courage is most meaningful when accompanied by compassion, strength is most admirable when guided by humility, and leadership is most effective when rooted in honesty, responsibility, and service rather than authority or fear. Throughout Clark Kent's journey, the film consistently reinforces that every difficult choice, every personal sacrifice, and every act of kindness contributes to a larger legacy that inspires others to become more courageous, truthful, and compassionate in their own lives, proving that the influence of a genuine hero extends far beyond physical victories or public recognition. Lois Lane's fearless commitment to uncovering the truth continues highlighting the indispensable role of integrity and independent journalism in defending justice against deception, while the enduring lessons of Jonathan and Martha Kent remind audiences that Superman's greatest strength has always been the values instilled in him through love, empathy, respect, and unwavering moral guidance rather than the extraordinary abilities he inherited from Krypton. The film's careful balance of emotionally intimate storytelling, breathtaking action, philosophical depth, and hopeful optimism allows it to celebrate the classic spirit of Superman while presenting themes that remain deeply relevant to modern audiences, encouraging viewers to reject cynicism, embrace responsibility, and believe that individual acts of goodness can create meaningful change even during the most uncertain times. By the end of this stage, Superman 2025 stands as an inspiring reflection on identity, sacrifice, hope, justice, and the enduring power of moral conviction, reminding everyone that true greatness is achieved not through limitless power or flawless perfection but through the daily decision to protect others, remain faithful to one's principles, and illuminate the world with compassion, courage, and unwavering hope. Part 31. As the final phase of the analysis begins, Superman 2025 ultimately succeeds because it reintroduces the Man of Steel as a hero whose greatest strength is his unwavering faith in humanity, demonstrating that even in a world filled with fear, conflict, misinformation, and moral uncertainty, one individual's commitment to truth, compassion, justice, and selfless service can inspire millions to become better versions of themselves, making Clark Kent's journey far more emotionally meaningful than a traditional superhero adventure focused only on defeating powerful enemies. The film consistently reminds audiences that Superman's victories are not defined by the destruction of villains but by the lives he saves, the hope he restores, and the example he sets through humility, patience, integrity, and mercy, proving that lasting influence is created through character rather than power. Lois Lane's unwavering determination to defend the truth complements Clark's mission perfectly, illustrating that courage exists in many forms and that honest journalism can be just as important as extraordinary strength in protecting society from manipulation and injustice, while the lasting wisdom of Jonathan and Martha Kent continues shaping every major decision Clark makes, reinforcing the idea that love, kindness, responsibility, and empathy are the true foundations of heroism regardless of one's origin. Through its emotional storytelling, memorable performances, inspiring visuals, and thoughtful exploration of identity, sacrifice, hope, and leadership. Superman 2025 * delivers a timeless message that extraordinary abilities alone cannot change the world unless they are guided by unwavering moral principles, encouraging viewers to recognize that genuine heroism begins with everyday acts of honesty, compassion, resilience, and the courage to stand for what is right even when doing so is difficult, unpopular, or personally costly. Part 32. As the analysis reaches its closing chapters, Superman 2025 * reinforces that Clark Kent's true purpose has never been to prove he is the strongest being on Earth but to remind humanity that hope, compassion, honesty, and selfless courage remain the most powerful forces capable of overcoming fear, hatred, and division, because every challenge he faces ultimately tests his character rather than his physical abilities, and each decision he makes demonstrates that genuine greatness is achieved by protecting the vulnerable, respecting the dignity of every individual, and remaining faithful to one's moral principles even when the world offers countless reasons to compromise them. The film's emotional strength lies in its refusal to portray Superman as an unreachable perfection, instead presenting him as a deeply compassionate individual who experiences loneliness, doubt, sacrifice, and immense responsibility while continually choosing kindness over resentment and service over personal comfort, making his journey universally relatable despite its extraordinary scale. Lois Lane's fearless pursuit of truth and the lasting influence of Jonathan and Martha Kent continue shaping Clark's understanding of justice, reinforcing the timeless lesson that integrity, empathy, humility, and unconditional love are the true foundations of leadership, while the breathtaking action sequences never overshadow the emotional core of the narrative because every spectacular moment serves the larger purpose of illustrating Superman's unwavering commitment to preserving life and inspiring hope. By blending classic heroic ideals with contemporary themes of trust, accountability, identity, and resilience, Superman 2025 * becomes more than a superhero film, evolving into an uplifting reflection on what it truly means to lead by example and reminding audiences that the greatest legacy anyone can leave behind is not measured by power or fame but by the positive influence they have on the lives, choices, and hopes of others. Part 33. As the analysis enters its final reflections, Superman 2025 * ultimately celebrates the enduring belief that hope is a responsibility shared by everyone rather than a burden carried by one extraordinary hero alone. Illustrating that Clark Kent's greatest success is inspiring ordinary people to reject fear, embrace compassion, defend truth, and support one another during moments of uncertainty, because the film repeatedly demonstrates that lasting change occurs only when individuals choose to live according to the same values Superman represents instead of simply admiring him from afar. Every major conflict throughout the story reinforces the idea that power without morality inevitably leads to corruption, while strength guided by humility, empathy, accountability, and integrity becomes a force capable of uniting communities and restoring faith in humanity, making Clark's moral discipline just as remarkable as his incredible abilities. Lois Lane's unwavering dedication to exposing deception further emphasizes that justice depends not only on heroes with superhuman powers but also on courageous individuals willing to pursue truth despite intimidation and personal risk, while the wisdom imparted by Jonathan and Martha Kent continues reminding Clark that his greatest identity is defined not by his Kryptonian heritage but by the compassion, honesty, responsibility, and unconditional love that shaped his character throughout his life. Visually and emotionally, the film balances inspiring action with deeply personal moments of reflection, ensuring that every spectacular rescue and every difficult decision contributes to Clark's growth as both a hero and a human being, ultimately delivering a timeless message that the strongest legacy any person can create is one built upon selfless service, unwavering hope, moral courage, and the determination to make the world better through kindness rather than fear, leaving audiences with an uplifting reminder that true heroes inspire others to become heroes in their own everyday lives. Part 34. As the analysis reaches its penultimate chapter, Superman 2025 * fully establishes that Clark Kent's greatest triumph is not measured by the enemies he defeats or the extraordinary feats he accomplishes but by the hope he restores in people who had begun to lose faith in one another, illustrating that his unwavering commitment to truth, justice, compassion, humility, and selfless service transforms him from a legendary superhero into a timeless symbol of humanity's highest ideals. Throughout the film, every challenge reinforces the belief that genuine courage is demonstrated not through displays of overwhelming power but through the willingness to protect the innocent, forgive those who misunderstand you, remain honest despite manipulation, and continue choosing kindness even when faced with hatred, fear, and relentless opposition, proving that Superman's greatest strength has always been the moral conviction guiding every decision he makes rather than the incredible abilities granted by his Kryptonian heritage. The enduring partnership between Clark Kent and Lois Lane symbolizes the importance of trust, equality, and the relentless pursuit of truth, while the lasting influence of Jonathan and Martha Kent reminds audiences that love, empathy, integrity, and responsibility remain the true foundations of heroic character regardless of one's origin or abilities. By seamlessly combining emotionally grounded storytelling, philosophical reflection, memorable performances, and breathtaking cinematic spectacle, the film encourages viewers to believe that extraordinary change begins with ordinary acts of courage and compassion, making Superman 2025 a powerful celebration of hope, resilience, sacrifice, and moral leadership that continues inspiring audiences long after the final scene by reminding them that the greatest heroes are those who choose every day to make the world brighter through honesty, selflessness, and unwavering faith in the goodness of humanity. Part 35. In conclusion, Superman 2025 stands as an inspiring and emotionally resonant reimagining of one of the world's most iconic superheroes, successfully reminding audiences that Superman's true greatness has never been defined by his ability to fly, his incredible strength, or his invulnerability, but by his unwavering commitment to protecting every innocent life with compassion, humility, honesty, courage, and selfless dedication, making Clark Kent a timeless symbol of hope whose greatest power lies in inspiring humanity to become better rather than depending entirely upon him. James Gunn's direction combines heartfelt character development, breathtaking action, meaningful philosophical questions, memorable performances, and a strong emotional core to create a story that respects the classic legacy of Superman while presenting themes that feel deeply relevant to the modern world, including truth versus misinformation, responsibility versus power, unity versus division, and hope versus fear. The relationship between Clark Kent and Lois Lane provides emotional depth through trust, equality, and mutual respect, while the lasting influence of Jonathan and Martha Kent reminds viewers that extraordinary character is shaped through love, kindness, empathy, integrity, and moral guidance rather than inherited through birth or power, reinforcing the timeless belief that anyone can become a hero through everyday choices rooted in compassion and responsibility. By balancing spectacular cinematic moments with thoughtful reflections on identity, leadership, sacrifice, resilience, and the enduring importance of truth and justice, the film delivers a powerful message that genuine heroism is not measured by fame, victory, or limitless abilities but by the courage to stand for what is right even when facing criticism, loneliness, or impossible odds, making Superman 2025 not only an exciting superhero adventure but also a meaningful exploration of humanity's highest ideals and an uplifting reminder that hope remains the strongest force in any world when carried by people who refuse to abandon kindness, integrity, and faith in a better future, earning the film a strong overall evaluation of *9.5/10* for its emotional storytelling, inspiring performances, visual spectacle, thoughtful themes, and faithful celebration of the timeless spirit of Superman. Part 36. Looking beyond the ending, Superman 2025 leaves audiences with an optimistic vision of the future by suggesting that the greatest legacy of any hero is not the battles they win but the hope they inspire in future generations, because Clark Kent understands that no single individual can protect the world forever and that lasting peace depends upon ordinary people embracing compassion, honesty, courage, responsibility, and unity within their own communities. The film concludes by reinforcing that Superman's mission has always been larger than defeating villains, as he serves as a living reminder that every act of kindness, every decision to tell the truth, every sacrifice made for another person, and every refusal to surrender to hatred strengthens the moral foundation of society, allowing hope to survive even during the darkest moments. Emotionally, Clark fully accepts both his Kryptonian heritage and his human upbringing, realizing that his identity is defined not by the planet where he was born but by the values he chooses to live by every day, including humility, empathy, integrity, forgiveness, and unwavering dedication to protecting innocent lives without expecting recognition or reward. Lois Lane remains an equal partner whose fearless pursuit of truth continues, demonstrating that journalism, honesty, and accountability are essential pillars of justice, while the lasting influence of Jonathan and Martha Kent reminds viewers that love, compassion, and moral guidance shape true heroes more profoundly than extraordinary abilities ever could. By ending on a message of hope rather than triumph, Superman 2025 encourages audiences to believe that every individual possesses the ability to become a source of light for others through everyday acts of courage, kindness, and selfless service, making the film not only a memorable superhero adventure but also a timeless reflection on humanity's potential to build a better future together through trust, resilience, and an unshakable belief in the power of goodness. Part 37. A deeper character analysis of Superman 2025 reveals that Clark Kent is portrayed as far more than an unstoppable superhero, because the film intentionally focuses on his emotional intelligence, moral discipline, humility, and unwavering compassion, showing that his greatest strength comes from his ability to understand human pain rather than simply overpower his enemies. Throughout the story, Clark repeatedly places the lives of innocent people above his own safety, personal happiness, and public reputation, demonstrating that true heroism is defined by selfless sacrifice instead of physical dominance, while his constant struggle to balance his Kryptonian origins with the human values taught by Jonathan and Martha Kent creates a deeply relatable internal conflict that gives the character emotional depth rarely explored in traditional superhero films. Lois Lane serves not only as a romantic partner but also as Clark's intellectual equal and moral supporter, challenging him to remain truthful, emotionally honest, and faithful to his principles even during moments of uncertainty, making their relationship one of mutual respect rather than dependence. The supporting characters further reinforce the central message that genuine leadership is earned through empathy, integrity, accountability, patience, and service instead of fear or authority, while Superman's refusal to surrender his optimism despite criticism, loneliness, manipulation, and overwhelming. Part 38. From a thematic and cinematic perspective, Superman 2025 contains numerous symbolic moments and subtle details that enrich its story beyond the surface-level superhero action, as James Gunn repeatedly uses visual imagery, meaningful dialogue, and character interactions to emphasize that Superman represents hope, compassion, and moral responsibility rather than absolute power, with the bright colors of his classic costume symbolizing optimism in contrast to the darker atmosphere created by fear, misinformation, and public division. The recurring emphasis on Clark Kent's ordinary life as a journalist highlights the idea that truth is just as important as strength, suggesting that words, honesty, and accountability can change the world as effectively as extraordinary abilities, while the continued influence of Jonathan and Martha Kent reminds viewers that Superman's greatest powers are not flight or invulnerability but the kindness, empathy, humility, and integrity they taught him throughout his childhood. The film also explores the symbolism of choice by demonstrating that Clark's destiny is shaped not by his Kryptonian birth but by the decisions he makes every day to protect others without expecting praise or recognition, reinforcing the belief that heroism is earned through actions instead of inherited through bloodline or status. Visually, several scenes place Superman above the skyline or surrounded by light to represent hope rising above fear, yet these moments are always balanced by intimate conversations that reveal his emotional vulnerability, ensuring that the legendary symbol never overshadows the compassionate human being beneath the cape. By combining thoughtful symbolism, emotional storytelling, philosophical themes, memorable performances, and spectacular action, Superman 2025 delivers a layered cinematic experience that rewards repeated viewing and reminds audiences that the most powerful symbol in the film is not the famous House of L emblem itself but the timeless ideals of truth, justice, compassion, resilience, and hope that the symbol inspires people to embrace in their own lives. Part 39. An overall critical analysis of Superman 2025 shows that the film succeeds because it understands that the true essence of Superman has always been his humanity rather than his superhuman abilities, allowing the story to explore profound themes of identity, hope, sacrifice, truth, leadership, responsibility, and moral courage without losing the excitement and spectacle expected from a modern superhero blockbuster. James Gunn carefully balances emotional storytelling with large-scale action by ensuring that every major battle reflects Clark Kent's internal journey instead of existing solely for visual entertainment, making each conflict meaningful because it tests his compassion, humility, patience, and commitment to protecting innocent lives above all else. David Corenswet delivers a sincere performance that captures both the quiet warmth of Clark Kent and the inspiring presence of Superman, while the supporting cast, particularly Lois Lane, strengthens the narrative by reminding audiences that truth, accountability, and courage are shared responsibilities rather than qualities possessed by heroes alone. Visually, the film embraces bright colors, hopeful imagery, dynamic cinematography, and memorable musical themes that celebrate the optimistic legacy of Superman while presenting a contemporary world challenged by fear, misinformation, and social division, creating a compelling contrast between darkness and hope. Beyond its entertainment value, the movie encourages viewers to reflect upon their own choices by suggesting that every individual possesses the ability to become a source of kindness, honesty, resilience, and inspiration within their own community, reinforcing the timeless belief that extraordinary change begins through ordinary acts of compassion and integrity. And for these reasons, Superman 2025 stands as one of the most emotionally uplifting superhero films in recent years, honoring the character's legacy while presenting a thoughtful vision of heroism that remains relevant for audiences across generations. Part 40. In the final analysis, Superman 2025 stands as a powerful celebration of hope, humanity, and the enduring belief that true heroism is measured not by limitless strength but by the courage to protect others with compassion, honesty, humility, and unwavering integrity, bringing Clark Kent's journey to a deeply satisfying conclusion that reminds audiences why Superman has remained one of the world's most beloved superheroes for generations. Rather than presenting him as an untouchable godlike figure, the film portrays him as a compassionate individual who continuously chooses selfless service over personal comfort, forgiveness over revenge, truth over deception, and hope over despair, proving that the greatest victories are won within the heart long before they are achieved on the battlefield. Every major relationship in the story, from Lois Lane's fearless commitment to truth to the lasting wisdom of Jonathan and Martha Kent, reinforces the idea that love, trust, responsibility, empathy, and moral conviction shape a hero far more profoundly than extraordinary powers ever could, while the breathtaking visuals, inspiring score, emotionally grounded performances, and thoughtful screenplay combine to create a cinematic experience that remains exciting without losing its emotional depth. The film's central message ultimately extends beyond Superman himself by encouraging every viewer to recognize that heroism exists in everyday acts of kindness, honesty, sacrifice, resilience, and the willingness to stand for what is right even when doing so is difficult, making the story universally meaningful regardless of age or background. Viewed as a complete work, Superman 2025 succeeds as both an entertaining blockbuster and a heartfelt exploration of identity, leadership, hope, justice, and human potential, leaving audiences with the timeless reminder that while not everyone can fly or possess extraordinary abilities, everyone has the power to inspire others through compassion, integrity, courage, and an unwavering belief that a brighter future is always worth fighting for, making this film a memorable and emotionally rewarding beginning for a new era of Superman on the big screen. Part 41. Looking beyond the film itself, Superman 2025 can be viewed as the beginning of a larger cinematic journey rather than the conclusion of a single adventure, because the story intentionally leaves audiences with the feeling that Clark Kent's mission to inspire hope has only just begun, suggesting that the challenges awaiting him in the future will test not only his incredible powers but also his compassion, wisdom, patience, and ability to unite people during times of uncertainty. The ending reinforces that Superman's greatest achievement is not defeating one particular enemy but proving that hope can survive even in a world divided by fear, misinformation, and conflict, encouraging humanity to become active participants in building a better future instead of relying entirely on one extraordinary hero, while Clark's continued work as a journalist symbolizes his belief that truth is just as important as strength in protecting society. Lois Lane remains an indispensable partner whose courage, intelligence, and commitment to honest reporting demonstrate that real heroism is found in everyday acts of integrity as much as in spectacular rescues, and the enduring influence of Jonathan and Martha Kent continues guiding Clark's moral decisions by reminding him that kindness, humility, empathy, responsibility, and unconditional love will always define his identity more deeply than his Kryptonian heritage. From a broader perspective, the film successfully restores Superman's image as a timeless symbol of optimism for modern audiences, blending emotional storytelling, meaningful philosophical themes, memorable performances, and breathtaking action into an inspiring narrative that celebrates humanity's potential for goodness, leaving viewers with the uplifting message that every individual possesses the ability to create positive change through courage, compassion, honesty, and the determination to stand for what is right regardless of how difficult the circumstances may become. Part 42. As a final reflective chapter, Superman 2025 ultimately proves that the character's lasting appeal comes not from his extraordinary powers but from the timeless ideals he represents, reminding audiences that hope is strongest when it is shared, courage is most meaningful when it protects the vulnerable, and true leadership is earned through humility, honesty, compassion, and unwavering moral conviction rather than fear or authority. Throughout the film, Clark Kent repeatedly demonstrates that every act of kindness has the potential to inspire another, creating a ripple effect that extends far beyond any single heroic rescue, while his journey illustrates that the greatest challenges in life are often emotional and ethical rather than physical, requiring patience, empathy, forgiveness, and resilience instead of brute strength alone. The unwavering partnership between Clark and Lois Lane reinforces the importance of trust, equality, and the fearless pursuit of truth, while the lifelong guidance of Jonathan and Martha Kent reminds viewers that character is built through love, responsibility, and selfless example, making Superman's humanity the true source of his greatness rather than his Kryptonian abilities. By combining emotionally resonant storytelling, inspiring performances, philosophical depth, breathtaking action, and a hopeful vision of the future, Superman 2025 succeeds as both a heartfelt character study and an uplifting superhero adventure, leaving audiences with the enduring message that every person has the capacity to become a hero in their own way through everyday choices rooted in integrity, kindness, justice, and compassion, ensuring that Superman's legacy continues not only on the screen but also in the hearts of those inspired to make the world a better place through their own actions. Part 43. Reflecting on the complete cinematic experience, Superman 2025 demonstrates that the greatest superhero stories are ultimately about the human spirit rather than superhuman abilities, presenting Clark Kent as a character whose compassion, humility, resilience, and unwavering belief in the goodness of people define him far more than his incredible strength or ability to fly, and this emotional foundation allows the film to resonate with audiences on a deeper level by showing that every act of courage begins with a simple decision to help someone in need. Throughout the narrative, the screenplay consistently reinforces the importance of truth, responsibility, sacrifice, forgiveness, and hope, encouraging viewers to recognize that lasting change is created not only by extraordinary heroes but also by ordinary individuals who choose integrity over selfishness and unity over division, while Lois Lane's fearless dedication to honest journalism serves as a reminder that protecting the truth is itself a heroic act capable of shaping the future of society. Clark's enduring connection to the lessons of Jonathan and Martha Kent further strengthens the emotional core of the story by proving that love, empathy, humility, and moral guidance remain the greatest gifts any parent can offer, shaping a hero whose character is built through compassion instead of power. From its inspiring visuals and memorable performances to its thoughtful exploration of identity, leadership, and justice, the film successfully balances entertainment with meaningful life lessons, ultimately leaving audiences with the timeless realization that Superman's greatest legacy is not simply saving the world from danger but inspiring countless people to become kinder, braver, more honest, and more compassionate in their own lives, ensuring that the symbol of hope represented by the House of El continues shining brightly for generations to come. Part 44. In this extended closing reflection, Superman 2025 ultimately reminds audiences that every generation needs symbols capable of inspiring hope during uncertain times, and Clark Kent fulfills that role not because he is invincible but because he consistently chooses compassion over hatred, patience over anger, forgiveness over revenge, and service over personal glory, demonstrating that genuine heroism is defined by character rather than power. The film's emotional impact comes from its belief that even the smallest acts of kindness can create lasting change, encouraging ordinary people to become active participants in building a more honest, just, and compassionate society instead of waiting for extraordinary individuals to solve every problem. While Clark's dual identity as both Superman and a Daily Planet journalist reinforces the idea that truth and hope must always exist together if justice is to survive. Lois Lane's courage, intelligence, and determination continue proving that heroism is expressed through integrity and the fearless pursuit of facts just as much as through physical bravery, and the enduring influence of Jonathan and Martha Kent remains the moral foundation upon which Clark's entire identity is built, reminding viewers that love, empathy, humility, responsibility, and unwavering ethical values shape the strongest heroes long before they ever face their greatest challenges. By combining emotional storytelling, memorable performances, inspiring action, philosophical depth, and a timeless message of optimism, Superman 2025 becomes more than an entertaining superhero film, evolving into a meaningful reflection on humanity's capacity for goodness and resilience, ultimately encouraging every viewer to carry the spirit of Superman into their own lives by choosing honesty, compassion, courage, and selfless service whenever the opportunity arises, because true hope grows strongest when it is shared through everyday actions rather than extraordinary powers. Part 45. Bringing this extended review and analysis to its final conclusion, Superman 2025 succeeds because it understands that the essence of Superman has always been hope rather than power, compassion rather than conquest, and service rather than glory, presenting Clark Kent as a hero whose greatest achievement is inspiring ordinary people to believe that kindness, truth, courage, humility, and responsibility can overcome fear, hatred, deception, and despair even in the most difficult circumstances. The film carefully balances emotional character development, philosophical reflection, spectacular action, and heartfelt relationships to create a version of Superman that feels both timeless and relevant, allowing audiences to connect with Clark not simply as an extraordinary protector but as a deeply compassionate individual whose greatest battles are often fought within his own conscience as he strives to remain faithful to the values that define him. Lois Lane's intelligence, bravery, and Part 46. As an ultimate epilogue to this complete review and analysis, Superman 2025 leaves behind a message that extends far beyond the boundaries of the superhero genre by reminding audiences that every generation faces moments of uncertainty, conflict, and fear, yet history is changed not only by extraordinary individuals but also by ordinary people who choose compassion instead of hatred, truth instead of deception, courage instead of silence, and hope instead of despair, making Clark Kent's journey a universal reflection of humanity's highest ideals rather than simply the story of a man with incredible powers. The film carefully illustrates that Superman's most remarkable ability is his unwavering belief that every life possesses equal value and deserves protection regardless of race, nationality, background, or personal belief, reinforcing the timeless lesson that justice is meaningful only when it is guided by empathy, humility, and fairness instead of power or personal gain, while his partnership with Lois Lane and the lifelong guidance of Jonathan and Martha Kent continue demonstrating that love, integrity, honesty, and responsibility remain the true foundations upon which lasting heroism is built. Through Emotionally Part 46. As an ultimate epilogue to this complete review and analysis, Superman 2025 leaves behind a message that extends far beyond the boundaries of the superhero genre by reminding audiences that every generation faces moments of uncertainty, conflict, and fear, yet history is changed not only by extraordinary individuals but also by ordinary people who choose compassion instead of hatred, truth instead of deception, courage instead of silence, and hope instead of despair, making Clark Kent's journey a universal reflection of humanity's highest ideals rather than simply the story of a man with incredible powers. The film carefully illustrates that Superman's most remarkable ability is his unwavering belief that every life possesses equal value and deserves protection regardless of race, nationality, background, or personal belief, reinforcing the timeless lesson that justice is meaningful only when it is guided by empathy, humility, and fairness instead of power or personal gain, while his partnership with Lois Lane and the lifelong guidance of Jonathan and Martha Kent continue demonstrating that love, integrity, honesty, and responsibility remain the true foundations upon which lasting heroism is built. Through emotionally grounded storytelling, memorable performances, inspiring action, and thoughtful philosophical themes, Superman 2025 evolves into a modern myth about the enduring strength. Part 47, continuing this final extended analysis. Superman 2025 can be appreciated as a powerful reminder that the greatest heroes are not defined by the absence of weakness but by their ability to overcome doubt, fear, and hardship while continuing to protect what is right, and Clark Kent's journey perfectly represents this idea because his humanity is not a limitation but the very quality that makes him extraordinary. Throughout the film, Superman faces challenges that test his emotions, beliefs, and sense of purpose, yet he repeatedly chooses understanding over judgment, mercy over punishment, and hope over hopelessness, proving that his true power comes from the values he refuses to abandon even when the world questions him. The movie also explores the importance of connection, showing that Superman's strength is supported by the relationships he builds with people around him, especially Lois Lane, whose courage and honesty help him remain grounded and remind him that even the greatest heroes need trust, companionship, and emotional support. The lessons of Jonathan and Martha Kent continue to influence every aspect of Clark's personality, showing that the foundation of a hero is created through love, kindness, discipline, and moral guidance rather than through extraordinary circumstances alone. Visually and emotionally, the film succeeds by presenting Superman as both a legendary figure capable of impossible achievements and a compassionate individual who understands human struggles, allowing audiences to admire his power while connecting with his personal journey. Ultimately, Superman 2025 delivers a message that remains relevant in every era. The world does not become better because powerful people exist, but because individuals choose to use their abilities, opportunities, and voices to help others, making kindness, honesty, courage, and hope the greatest superpowers that anyone can possess. Part 48. In this additional chapter of the analysis, Superman 2025 continues proving why the character remains one of the most influential heroes in popular culture by focusing on the idea that hope is not created by perfection but by persistence, showing that Clark Kent becomes inspiring because he continues choosing goodness even when faced with criticism, personal struggles, impossible responsibilities, and moments of uncertainty. The film presents Superman as a hero who understands that having extraordinary abilities does not make someone automatically wise or morally correct, which is why Clark constantly reflects on his choices and considers the consequences of his actions before deciding how to protect others, creating a deeper portrayal of responsibility and emotional maturity. The story also highlights the importance of compassion in leadership, demonstrating that people are more likely to follow someone who listens, understands, and respects them rather than someone who controls them through fear or authority, making Superman's influence powerful because it comes from trust rather than force. Lois Lane's role continues strengthening this message by showing that truth, courage, and determination are essential qualities in defending justice, while the memories and teachings of Jonathan and Martha Kent remain a constant reminder that the strongest foundation of any hero is built through love, empathy, honesty, and respect for others. With its combination of emotional depth, inspiring themes, memorable characters, and spectacular superhero moments, Superman 2025 succeeds in showing that the symbol of Superman represents more than one individual wearing a cape. It represents the possibility that humanity can always choose hope, kindness, and courage even when facing overwhelming challenges, making the film's message powerful, universal, and meaningful for audiences of every generation. Part 49. As this extended review approaches its final stages, Superman 2025 reinforces the idea that the character's greatest legacy comes from the emotional connection he creates with people rather than the scale of his powers or the size of his victories, because Clark Kent represents the belief that hope can survive even in a world filled with uncertainty, conflict, and disappointment when individuals choose to act with compassion, honesty, and courage. The film portrays Superman as a hero who does not seek worship or control but instead chooses responsibility, understanding that his abilities are a gift meant to serve humanity rather than separate him from it, and this humility becomes the foundation of his relationship with the people he protects, allowing him to become a symbol of trust instead of fear. The narrative also explores the importance of moral choices by showing that every person, regardless of their circumstances, has the power to influence the world through their actions, whether by defending truth, helping others, showing kindness, or standing against injustice. Clark's journey reflects the universal struggle between personal sacrifice and greater responsibility, demonstrating that true heroes often make difficult choices because they value the well-being of others above their own comfort, while Lois Lane's dedication to truth and justice continues proving that heroism exists in many different forms beyond physical strength. The emotional lessons passed down by Jonathan and Martha Kent remain central to Superman's identity, reminding audiences that character is created through love, guidance, and the choices people make every day. Ultimately, Superman 2025 delivers a powerful reminder that the greatest symbols are not created by power alone but by the values they represent, and the hope, courage, kindness, and integrity represented by Superman continue inspiring people to believe that a better future is possible when humanity chooses compassion over fear and unity over division. Part 50. As the final extended chapter of this complete review and analysis, Superman 2025 represents more than the return of a legendary superhero. It represents a celebration of the ideals that have allowed Superman to remain an inspiring figure for generations, proving that the true meaning of heroism comes from compassion, responsibility, honesty, sacrifice, and the courage to stand for what is right even when the world becomes uncertain. Throughout Clark Kent's journey, the film demonstrates that his greatest strength is not his ability to lift impossible weights or overcome powerful enemies but his unwavering decision to protect life, respect humanity, and believe in the possibility of goodness even when faced with fear, criticism, and opposition. The emotional depth of the story comes from showing Superman as both extraordinary and deeply human, allowing audiences to understand that even someone with unlimited power can experience doubt, loneliness, pressure, and difficult choices, yet true greatness is found in continuing to choose kindness despite those challenges. Lois Lane's role highlights the importance of truth, courage, and partnership, while the influence of Jonathan and Martha Kent proves that the values learned through love, family, and moral guidance are the real foundations of character. From its powerful themes and emotional performances to its inspiring action and hopeful message, Superman 2025 succeeds as a modern interpretation of a timeless legend, reminding audiences that everyone has the ability to become a hero through everyday decisions rooted in empathy, honesty, courage, and service to others. The ultimate lesson of the film is that hope is not something given only by extraordinary people but something created whenever individuals choose to care, protect, forgive, and support one another, making Superman's legacy far greater than a symbol on a costume. It becomes a reminder that humanity's greatest power has always been the ability to choose goodness. Even in the Part 51, continuing the deeper exploration of Superman 2025, the film's lasting impact comes from its ability to transform a familiar superhero story into a meaningful reflection on what it means to be human, showing that Clark Kent's journey is ultimately about finding purpose, maintaining compassion, and choosing responsibility despite the overwhelming expectations placed upon him. The movie presents Superman as a figure who does not simply save people from physical danger but also gives them emotional strength by reminding them that hope can exist even during moments of fear, uncertainty, and hardship, and this approach allows the character to remain relevant across generations. Clark's greatest victories come from moments of moral courage, such as choosing forgiveness when revenge would be easier, choosing honesty when deception would provide personal advantage, and choosing sacrifice when protecting others requires him to put his own happiness aside. The film also emphasizes that Superman's connection with humanity is what makes him truly powerful, because his willingness to understand human struggles allows people to see him not as an unreachable being but as a symbol of shared values and common dreams. Lois Lane continues representing the importance of truth and determination, proving that heroes can exist through intelligence, courage, and commitment to justice without possessing extraordinary abilities, while the teachings of Jonathan and Martha Kent remain the emotional foundation that keeps Clark connected to humility and kindness. Through its themes of hope, identity, leadership, and responsibility, Superman 2025 reminds audiences that the world becomes better when individuals choose empathy over selfishness, courage over fear, and truth over convenience, creating a powerful message that the greatest heroes are those who inspire others to discover their own ability to make a positive difference. Part 52. Continuing the extended analysis of Superman 2025, the film further highlights that the true meaning of Superman's character lies in his ability to represent hope during moments when humanity feels divided, uncertain, and overwhelmed by challenges, because Clark Kent's greatest mission is not simply defeating threats but reminding people that compassion, honesty, and courage still have the power to change the world. Throughout the story, Superman faces situations that challenge his beliefs and force him to examine the responsibility that comes with extraordinary abilities, yet he consistently chooses to act with patience, empathy, and fairness instead of allowing anger or disappointment to control his decisions, proving that emotional strength is just as important as physical strength. The movie also explores the idea that heroes are not created by their powers alone but by the choices they make when those powers are tested, and Clark's willingness to sacrifice his own comfort for the safety of others demonstrates the true meaning of selfless leadership. His relationship with Lois Lane continues adding emotional depth by showing the importance of trust, honesty, and partnership, while her determination to reveal the truth represents the power of courage and integrity in a world where misinformation can easily influence people. The memories and teachings of Jonathan and Martha Kent remain a constant reminder that Superman's greatest qualities were developed through love, discipline, kindness, and moral guidance rather than through his alien origins. With its inspiring message, emotional storytelling, and thoughtful exploration of what it means to be a hero, Superman 2025 ultimately teaches audiences that greatness is not measured by how much power someone possesses but by how much good they choose to create with whatever abilities and opportunities they have, making hope, compassion, and responsibility the true superpowers that define humanity. Part 53. As the extended review continues, Superman 2025 further establishes that the heart of the story is not about a perfect hero who never struggles, but about a person who continues choosing the right path despite facing doubt, pressure, and impossible expectations, making Clark Kent's journey deeply relatable and emotionally powerful. The film explores the idea that being a hero requires constant effort because every decision has consequences, and Superman understands that his actions influence not only the people he saves but also the way humanity views hope, justice, and responsibility, which is why he approaches every challenge with patience, humility, and compassion rather than pride or aggression. One of the strongest themes in the movie is the belief that kindness is a form of strength, because Clark repeatedly proves that understanding people, protecting the innocent, and showing mercy can achieve results that force alone can never create. The connection between Superman and ordinary people becomes one of the film's most meaningful elements, as his greatest victories come from inspiring others to believe in themselves and work together instead of depending completely on him. Lois Lane continues to represent courage, intelligence, and truth, showing that heroism exists through dedication and honesty as much as through physical power, while the values taught by Jonathan and Martha Kent remain the foundation of Clark's character and remind him that his identity is built on compassion rather than his abilities. Through its emotional storytelling, inspiring themes, and powerful exploration of morality, Superman 2025 delivers a message that remains relevant beyond the superhero genre, reminding audiences that every person has the ability to create positive change by choosing empathy, integrity, courage, and hope in their everyday lives. Part 54. Continuing the final stages of this extended analysis, Superman 2025 shows that the true legacy of Clark Kent is built upon the trust and inspiration he creates among people rather than the fear his abilities could potentially generate, proving that power becomes meaningful only when it is guided by compassion, responsibility, and a genuine desire to help others. The film explores the difficult balance between being a symbol admired by millions and remaining a humble individual who understands ordinary human struggles, presenting Clark as someone who constantly chooses connection over isolation and service over personal recognition. Throughout his journey, Superman learns that he cannot force the world to believe in him, but he can continue demonstrating through his actions that kindness, honesty, and justice are values worth protecting, and this realization becomes one of the most important emotional lessons of the story. The movie also highlights the importance of teamwork in relationships, showing that even the greatest hero needs people who challenge him, support him, and remind him of his purpose, with Lois Lane representing truth, courage, and emotional balance while the teachings of Jonathan and Martha Kent continue guiding Clark's choices. The film's deeper message is that heroism is not reserved for individuals with extraordinary abilities, because every person can contribute to a better world through small but meaningful acts of compassion, honesty, and responsibility. By combining powerful character development, inspiring themes, and a hopeful vision of humanity, Superman 2025 succeeds in reminding audiences that the most important battles are not always fought with strength or technology but with the choices people make every day to protect kindness, defend truth, and believe that positive change is always possible. Part 55. In this continued reflection on Superman 2025, the film's greatest achievement is its ability to show that the symbol of Superman represents an idea much larger than one individual, because Clark Kent's journey demonstrates that hope survives when people choose compassion, courage, honesty, and responsibility even during moments of uncertainty and hardship. The story presents Superman as a protector who understands that his purpose is not to rule over humanity or prove his superiority but to serve humanity with humility and respect, creating a powerful contrast between those who seek control through fear and those who create change through trust and inspiration. Throughout the film, Clark faces emotional challenges that test his confidence, identity, and sense of belonging, yet he continues embracing the lessons learned from his human upbringing, proving that his greatest strength comes from his ability to care deeply about others and recognize the value of every life. The relationship between Clark and Lois Lane remains an important emotional element because it represents a partnership based on honesty, equality, and shared commitment to justice, while Lois's determination to reveal the truth shows that courage can appear in many different forms beyond physical strength. The continued influence of Jonathan and Martha Kent reinforces the idea that heroes are shaped by values, experiences, and choices rather than destiny alone, reminding audiences that kindness, empathy, and integrity are qualities anyone can develop. Ultimately, Superman 2025 delivers a universal message that the world does not become better simply because powerful heroes exist, but because individuals choose to act with compassion, protect others, and stand for what is right, making hope not just a symbol to admire but a responsibility that everyone can carry forward through their own actions. Face of Darkness. Relentless pursuit of truth perfectly complement Clark's mission, while the enduring wisdom of Jonathan and Martha Kent reminds viewers that the strongest heroes are shaped by love, empathy, integrity, and moral guidance long before they discover their extraordinary abilities, reinforcing the message that true greatness begins with everyday choices rather than destiny alone. From its inspiring performances and memorable visuals to its uplifting themes of hope, justice, sacrifice, resilience, identity, and leadership, Superman 2025 stands as a heartfelt celebration of everything the character has represented for generations. Leaving audiences with the powerful realization that although very few people will ever possess superhuman abilities, everyone has the capacity to become a hero through acts of compassion, honesty, courage, and selfless service, ensuring that the timeless symbol of Superman continues to inspire future generations to believe that a brighter, kinder, and more united world is always possible when people choose hope over fear and goodness over selfishness.